Guess what I'm going to ask you about, and which manager who might be feeling a little pressure at this point. I'll give you one guess.
Is this going to be deja vu all over again?
Literally, I feel like we've had this conversation about 7 times at least with you.
Yeah, Erik ten Hag. Yeah,
you go.
Let's go there straight away. I don't think it's an unfair question as to which of these managers is under the most pressure. And funny enough, if you actually go away from the players or the managers' press conferences, you'd have to say the noises coming out of both clubs' executives is actually very, very confident. Omar Barada, the Manchester United chief executive, he's talking about the rebuilding, and he's targeting the year 2028 for them to once again be challenging for the top honours in the game, the Premier League and the Champions League. Apparently, it's even given the code name, Project 150, because it would be the 150th anniversary of the club's foundation. So he's buoyant, he's confident. And Daniel Levy, the Tottenham chairman, who earlier this week, a fans forum, said very happily, with a big smile on his face, we've got our Tottenham back. So the upper echelons of both clubs, as I said, seem to be extremely buoyant. The results and performances, particularly so far this season, would tell you otherwise. I mean, they've both, since April, they've both only won 5 Premier League games. This is 10th versus 11th this weekend. But it is a significant game, and it would be a huge boost for either if they can get a win.
Jeff, imagine you're taking a trip across the Atlantic Ocean, and you've heard about the waves that the Manchester United ship is traversing, and you've heard about the tempest that the Spurs boat is going through. Considering the context, which ship would you get on to make it all the way across the Atlantic?
Well, for a start, I'd make sure I had a decent life jacket with me, Nico. I wouldn't actually fancy getting on either of those boats right now, because they both have their own problems, and they are, if you like, they're not that dissimilar. Manchester United just do not score enough goals. It's simple as that. They're getting decent chances, but they're not taking chances. Once again, in the last week, with Erik ten Hag have to come out and defend Marcus Rashford. Although this game could be ideal for him because Tottenham are vulnerable to conceding goals on the break. The quick turnover, that often seems to be their Achilles heel. Tottenham, yes, they're exciting going forwards, but again, they won last night, Carabao, 3-0 they won. That sounds really, really comfortable. It wasn't. They gave up chances. They give you chances. They pushed so high up to the halfway line. That's where teams get chances in behind them. I know Mickey van der Ven has incredible pace, but they will give you chances. And also, Tottenham's record on the road is astonishingly bad. Astonishingly bad.
Spurs fans were so unhappy with the way that they were playing with Conte. It was boring. It was so defensive. It was almost too much.
All those things were true, though.
Yeah, and this is the irony. They went to the other end of the spectrum, so exposed. So why can't we meet somewhere in the middle and then not play so risky? So I don't know, Jeff. I don't even know what to make of this. It's like, sure. Like, is it sustainable?
As we look at the narratives, there's a lot of pressure on both of these coaches. They're both on the hot seat. Whose seat do you think is hotter?
Well, I'd say by definition, because of the size of Manchester United, Alexis, because there's always going to be pressure in that club. You know, you could come second with Manchester United in the Premier League. If that was after a period of sustained success, then you'd say that is the more pressurised job. You've also got relatively new owners, albeit minority owners. So it's, I'd say it's the Manchester United job.
I don't know if you've noticed in a lot of the photos we're showing, Ruud van Nistelrooy is right in that background, waiting for his turn.
Yeah, it's just, I don't think he's waiting for his turn because he was brought in by him. You know, he was a great striker as well.
It would be regicide at its greatest expression.
You mean Ruud van Nistelrooy Brutus?
I think that he's... I think there's an unwritten rule, isn't there? You don't take the place of a manager if that manager brought you in. And, you know, I think the other things as well, like they say in football, it's when you're not getting the chances, when you're not taking the chances, that is exactly when you've got a real big problem. They're getting the chances. Again, now my seriously dubious stats department, Bruno Fernandes apparently has had more shots without scoring than anybody else in Europe, 17. Now, those goals start going in, then Manchester United are a very different team, aren't they?
Yeah, very much so. And I love that stat because in some of the matches, you just watch and you're just frustrated by the lack of production between he and Joshua Zirkzee. Sticking in the city of Manchester, I want to talk about Manchester City, who travel up north to go to Newcastle, which has proved to be, let's say, a competitive match or tricky place to go, St. James's Park, under Eddie Howe in the last couple matches they faced each other. No Rodri. How does Pep Guardiola cope with life without his talismanic midfielder?
Well, I don't think he's got another midfielder that is of the same makeup as him. He can change things around. I mean, the most obvious person is put Gundogan in there. And, you know, he'll more than do a job for you. And perhaps against Manchester City, then against Newcastle United, it's a different challenge playing without Rodri. So I think they'll cope okay. I think they've got options. Don't forget John Stones can push in as well. You've got Rico Lewis too. I mean, Pep is such a good coach. He can coach many players who are normally or used to playing in a formal or normal position to fill in there for him. But it was noticeable last week, the difference between Manchester City when Rodri was on the pitch and when he went off. And that was when it was 11 versus 11. You can't understate really how important Rodri is to Manchester City. But also, you then got to go to the mental side of it. Look, he's not available. He's not there. So get used to it and get used to it quick as well, because the Premier League is unforgiving. Newcastle United, you just don't know what you're going to get on the day. We know about the crowd, but obviously they don't play in the game. And they've had a strange week as well, because they were absolutely awful at Fulham last week. And Eddie Howe pretty much said so. They were terrible. And then their game in midweek in the Carabao against Wimbledon, AFC Wimbledon, was postponed due to a huge swallow hole opening up on the pitch. We had a torrential downpour. The pitch wasn't unplayable. There was a massive hole in it. So they've had, if you like, extra time to train. They've had a bit of a rest. They've had time to digest where and how and why it went so badly wrong against Fulham. And I think they'll be looking for a reaction against that. So, look, no, of course you fancy Manchester City going into it. No games are given in the Premier League. But I think Newcastle United will want to provide a response to last week's poor display.
Jeff, one of the matches that I'm super intrigued by tomorrow is Chelsea-Brighton. Two new managers that are having a huge amount of success with their clubs. What are you anticipating in this one? Who do you think has the edge?
I think it's going to be a really tactical game, Suze. I think you've got two managers who very much they think deeply about the game. They're not afraid to do something different. And they're also, in their own way, both proving that, or if you like, trying to get their message across to their players, because neither have been with their groups of players for that long. You know, they've both come in this season. So we know that they are still bedding down, but we're starting to see some. I mean, I've been really impressed with Fabian Hürzeler. I think he's bright. He's not afraid to do things that are completely different, and he's not afraid to take the game to the opposition. He's not cowed by reputation. And he certainly doesn't act like, you know, we all talk about his age. He doesn't talk like a youngster or an apprentice, none whatsoever. Chelsea's just starting to click, aren't they? And in Jackson and Cole Palmer, what a fabulous duo they have there. But strangely enough, haven't won at home this season. So they'll be looking to put that right as well. I think that'd be a really good football game, if you like. I know that sounds obvious. It sounds a cliche. But I expect it to be a decent game.
Is he the first Gen Z coach?
Gen Z.
Is he?
No, he's not Gen Z.
No. He's 31?
No, I'm 30 and I'm millennial. I'm at the very end of
He
millennial.
just squeaked in.
We will have in 2-3 years, the next Hürzeler will be Gen Z.
Nice.
Wow, crazy.
Wow, that is wild.
We're not far away. I'm looking forward to it, because in my advanced years, obviously I've interviewed lots of players and I've interviewed players' sons who then become players. I'm waiting on for my first granddad experience.
Oh,
It's going to happen to me soon.
Learn the word skibbity now.
Well, that's wild. Jeff Shreves, great stuff as always. Thanks so much for taking the time. We'll catch up with you next week.
I didn't understand the criticism in these. But yeah, people, they are entitled if they want to, but what they are not entitled to bring speculation in. If I give an explanation, then they have to trust my words and to trust my explanation, and that's not right.
Well, Ten Hag has won 2 domestic trophies with United, and he feels winning a knockout tournament is tougher than securing a top 4 finish in the Premier League.
It's the most difficult probably, because in a tournament of 32, you have to be the best. But it's a target, and it's a road we want to go.
So would you say winning this tournament is harder than getting a top 4 place in the Premier League?
That's because in the end you get knockout stage. But I think it's don't look too far ahead from game to game. Let's first do 20. But as you know, we want to win all the competitions we are taking part in, and this is one of them. But you have to go game by game, and let's first focus on the first game.
Well, United have been out training this afternoon as they gear up for tomorrow's game, and we can join our reporter Anton Touloui.
Yeah, Manchester United are being put through their paces for the final time before they start their Europa League adventure. As you can see, players just coming out onto the pitch here at Carrington. And good news, obviously, there are some players out there that Manchester United fans are keen to see in first-team action. None more so than Rasmus Højlund. Now, we got a glimpse of him, didn't we, against Crystal Palace at the weekend. Erik Ten Hag confirming that the squad for that game will be the same for this one, but there will be rotation. So does that mean Manchester United's number 9 will be back? He was prolific in Manchester United's brief Champions League endeavours last season, scoring 5 goals in just 6 games. He'll be keen to show what Manchester United have been missing, and that is goals. Also, as I said, we are expecting rotation, so a big question mark about whether Marcus Rashford comes back into the team. A lot of criticism for the head coach about him not playing Marcus Rashford against Crystal Palace at the weekend, but he was citing rotation with a number of games Manchester United are playing. So does that mean that the England forward will be back in the reckoning against FC Twente tomorrow night? And will he be back in the goals like he was against Barnsley in Manchester United's last cup competition game? As you can see, the players then just about to be put through their stretches, about to start their warm-ups. At the back of that is Erik Ten Hag talking to Bruno Fernandes. Now, this game for Erik Ten Hag is one of some rare emotion. He's a former SC Twente player, came through the academy there, admits he's a fan, and says sometimes you have to hurt the thing you love to be successful. Success is what Manchester United are targeting in this competition. Ten Hag very proud of the fact in his first 2 seasons at the club, he's won 2 trophies. He's desperate to make it 3, and to make the third one a European competition, not only guaranteeing silverware, but also Champions League football next year. Ten Hag admits winning the Europa League is harder than finishing top 4 in the Premier League. Manchester United's European competition starts tomorrow night.
Well, United are back in Premier League action this weekend on Super Sunday when Tottenham come to Old Trafford. Coverage starts from 4 o'clock on Sky Sports Premier League.
Can we go back to Marcus Rashford? This was a moment for him to take another step, right? And we talked about, okay, he doesn't start against Crystal Palace, and it's a 0-0 draw. You know why? Because he's not in a rhythm. This is a player that needs to be in a rhythm. He's been a whole season, he hasn't performed. So much so that he got out of the England team, which you thought for sure he'd be in it. For me, this falls not only on the players, because we have to hold the players accountable.
Well, you're saying he should have started in the last game as well to keep his form going.
For Rashford, for Manchester United, they're going to have an opportunity on Sunday for a palate cleanser against Spurs, right? To change the taste with these fans that are obviously not happy. The reality of the situation is that with the new format, this dropped points at home isn't as detrimental as it would have been in the group stage.
Great, but
you have a larger room for error. It's a larger margin of error. As I agree with everything you guys said, by the way, that it's bad. It's not to the United standard. But it's permissive, this new
But
format.
you think that makes it okay?
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
But United can get back on the horse, is what I'm saying. But now they're going to start picking up wins. They go to Porto next. I mean, first off, Spurs at home. That's got to be a must-win for fans, because then you keep that really sour taste from this drop points
But
going into the game at Porto next week.
what's going to be the fallout from this, though? Because last season they were disastrous in the Champions League, weren't they? They finished at the bottom of the group and they left things halfway through the group stage. You thought it's going to be tough for them to get out. Now they're in the Europa League. None of us had picked them to win. And you thought this is a real chance for them today. I mean, could this competition be the final straw for Erik ten Hag, do you think?
I don't think this competition will be the final straw. I think that how he does in the Premier League is probably going to be more so important. But I think what we have to let people understand is this is Manchester United. When you play football, there's different levels of clubs of what their ambitions are. And we have to understand that this is Man United. It's not the Manchester United are old, but there's still a responsibility when you wear that shirt and you're representing this club. This result today, regardless of the long stretch that's ahead, Nico, is not good enough to get a point at home against FC20. So we can't sugarcoat it. We can't sugarcoat a cover of it.
Right, but you can't sugarcoat it, and I agree you can't sugarcoat it. It's not good. But the reality of the situation, if I'm running at Manchester United, I'm running everything at Manchester United, I'm looking at it big picture saying, there's still time.
But does this even fill you with confidence with the game on the weekend?
Of course it doesn't. Of course it doesn't. But the only thing that can fill you with confidence is winning games.
Yes.
And Manchester United has a huge test this weekend against Spurs. And then they go to Porto, and that's when they need to right the ship.
Let me put the big story, the big picture of that. Marcus Rashford, a player that's been under the spotlight, talked about, finally gets his confidence going, scores 3 goals in a week. You drop him against Crystal Palace. You come out and say what you said to the press. He starts today, doesn't perform again today.
Right.
And then now you're going into a big Premier League game against Tottenham, a team that you're going to be keeping in the top 4.
They dialed up the pressure on themselves, and this is what I was talking about. Erik ten Hag, for sure. Everything, the surrounding context. We talked about it in the pregame. They're always playing catch-up. They don't give themselves a moment to breathe, because you could have beat Twente non-story today, as expected, and then go into that Spurs, have the fans backing you, confident in your performance from midweek, and then maybe get a result. But now there's doubts, and at Old Trafford, you know how it works. You don't get goal in the first half. Ooh, the murmurs
Just say this. If you look at Manchester United's performance today, can you tell me what their identity is? Can you tell me that they're playing good football? It's one thing to play this match and you win ugly, but you win.
Yeah.
They drew against Twente, and you couldn't look at this match and say, man United, they're really playing well.
But Charlie, in that first half...
There's a style of play. It's not.
Let's take a look at the highlights then, because in the first half, they did have the majority of the chances, didn't they? Obviously, they scored the opening goal through Christian Eriksen, and you thought, OK, well, this should be all 3 points. This should be a win for Manchester United. Here's where the goal came, and I think it was almost a sense of relief when this goal went in for the fans.
It was. Poppy, you said they had a lot of chances. Their highlight was just this, really, in the first half.
Well, they had 5 shots on target at the end of the game.
There weren't really any moments that you said, wow, they were playing. This is coming off a loss of a possession.
Charlie's right. There still is this question about identity, style of play, pattern of play. And again, we go back to the Marcus Rashford situation. One thing you don't do as a manager, if your striker's on form and scoring goals, you do not take him off. You do not rotate a striker that's just finding form, regardless, unless he looks completely tired. And now the modern-day football clubs, they've got all the scientific backing. They've got sports analysts, they've got sports analysts and all that who cover the data, who cover all the data. But when a player's on form, you have to keep him in the team, regardless.
What about
Marcus Rashford is...
Similar conversations to Garnacho. He has 4 goals in the season, but he's opted not to start him in several games now. Similar situation. Like,
So
how are you getting in rhythm?
All these situations will come down to the manager. He's making these decisions, and these decisions are not helping him. So when people like us have these conversations and talk about it, we have the right to say it because you're the one making decisions. And you look at the game, look how aggressive the substitutions he made towards the end. FC20 were defending for their lives. You want to bring on Mason Mount, you bring on Mainu and Højlund because you're trying to win the game. You shouldn't be forced at Old Trafford with that period left to bring so aggressive substitutions to try and win the game.
Charlie, a great moment in the game was when Twente did score the equaliser. We're going to take a look at it now because it was a fantastic goal, wasn't it? And obviously one that they're going to remember for a long time at Old Trafford, but really well worked.
Yes, look, they're building out of the back. They're not just lumping it long. And look at this dribbling.
Man United players.
Individual
5-6.
Meg. And then obviously he gets a little lucky here. Eriksson, look it. Turning into pressure.
That's front foot football.
And then look, the finish. Sam Lammers, he said, okay, I'm going to open my hips up and bury it near post. We see Mbappe do it week in and week out, typically with PSG and now with Real Madrid. But what I love about this is what Nigel said. This is front foot.
And if you're wondering if we're impartial in the studio, let's just take a look, shall we, at Charlie and Nigel's reaction, because
I know
it was
you didn't.
quite something.
Oh, Helen and Tom, y'all didn't do me like this.
This is
Jelani, Kaz, you didn't do me like this.
Charlie, you for once.
Look at that slow turn from you.
What do you have against Manchester United?
It's not Manchester, no. We were watching the flow of the game.
Yeah.
Did I not say,
You did.
I see this Manchester United game is going to end 1-1?
You
I can
called-
tell by the
he
flow of
called
the game,
it.
and I said it.
It was an omen. I vouch for that.
I said it.
You said that when Man United were up 1-0.
We're up 1-0 still. I said it's going to be
for
1-1.
me, I love underdogs. And I love the fact that Twente went to Old Trafford, where you expect a minnow, a smaller club like Twente, to say, oh, we're nervous, we can't play football, we're going to just launch it long and defend and just hold on. That wasn't the case. You felt they were going after the game. And as the game went on, Erik ten Hag panicked, the players panicked, and Twente got the result.
It felt like they did lose control, that they weren't in the driver's seat anymore. Even when the subs came, right? And Manchester United was pinning Twente back in the last, 10 minutes of the game?
It wasn't a great Manchester United performance. That's just the reality. And I think for us, we talk about this competition, how unique and great it is. And if we go back to last year, there were times we covered Liverpool, who thought people would be a Liverpool final. And for me, they struggled half the time when they changed their team. You look at the other results we saw today, Bodo Glimt beating Porto. How big Porto are as a club, and going there and losing 3-2, even with a man down. It's just really, it's great stories. And like Charlie said, you've got to give credit to these small sides. FC Twente deserved to get a point today with the performance they put in. They went there, played with no fear, and they deserved it.